Is it better when you see the slurp as well? Is it a little bit more natural and less horrible? How's it going, my G's? It's Artifact. Hope you're doing well. It's Sunday. Thought I'd just do a little quick video today because, yeah, I was doing a bit of sound design this morning. Created a new bass / lead, which I called the Hubba Bubba. Hubba Bubba 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 Hubba Bubba. And yeah, so Hubba Bubba me this. And let's have a little listen to the loop. It's getting quite beefy now. And I've actually added some wicked new other elements into it. But it got to the point where I'm getting to like it a lot, and I might make a song using it. So I'm going to be a little bit stingy with what I share with you now. But I'm going to share with you how I made this bass. So it's the Hubba Bubba. Have a little listen to the loop. See what you think.
The Parables of Phase Plant.
So these other sort of stabs and downbeat basses that come sort of before it are from the previous videos. The trucker, the absolutely disgusting bass, and then the dark, warm Reese. Basically, the last two videos I've done, I've just used them sort of next to each other as almost like a double call before the Hubba Bubba response. So you have this sort of trucker and then this Reese, dum dum, and then here again it sort of does a little dum 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 dum, which is wicked. And I kind of just did that by accident, just like chopping around the files. So I had that first without the Hubba Bubba bass, just running with the drums. To give myself that, space and breathing room to sound design in something new, which turned out to be this. So I kind of knew I wanted like a faster sort of pattern kind of sound, So I wanted to get in that sort of arpeggiated feeling, So I started off pretty simply by just adding in this LFO, which is going to do that main movement, and then tracking it to the level of the sound sources. So why don't I quickly talk about my NAN while I sort of disable all of these effects. So yeah, I like to use NANs as references because it's quite funny to imagine NANs in the Neurofunk rave. But there's no judgment here. I mean, anyone is welcome in the Neurofunk rave, and Neurofunk is a great genre, and I've almost talked my way through it. And here we go.
Listen.
So I'm starting off the whole process with this movement in mind, this 1/8 note movement. And for this particular one, I've tracked my LFO here, set to 2/16, which is 1/8, of course. I've tracked it to the gain of the whole group here. So when I start adding in my sounds, everything is going to be on this 8 groove. So I've started off with some white noise, just at 10%. And again, like what I've done is I've added a filter to take out the low end, and then just adjusted the stereo and the slope to make it like a little bit brighter. Then I've got a sample going in, which is the Marimba C4, which is like comes with phase plant, sorry. And yeah, turned right up, and it's sort of looped as well. And the way the loop I've done is like a little bit out of time. I just did it by ear, so it kind of has, you can kind of hear this extra detail when it starts to re-loop, and it's a bit out of time. But that like little textural subtlety creates the interest in the whole bass, as you will hear. So next up, I've got another sine wave. So it's all going in sort of a chain, and so this marimba is going to FM into the sine wave, turning the phase to the left a bit. Really nice around there, -12. And then I've got another sine wave, and again I'm FMing this result then into this sine wave and turning the phase up, so the other way this time, and it's at -24. So getting that sort of mid-range sine harmonic with the low end bassy sine wave harmonic, with the marimba sort of running through it all, bit of noise on top, and then all of it being modulated on the gain of the whole group. Yeah, and what happens when I use this global unison? The frequency stack mode is just really great for adding these extra harmonics, and it's just changed the sound a lot. As you just heard, without it, it's very different. And even when you change the voicing, it just gets completely different. So I love using the frequency stack mode to just completely change the whole sound, basically. And so yeah, having that on like at the beginning would be a cool idea to like sound design, you know, with it already on, because you might get some more interesting results like faster. But yeah, had that on, you know, I've blended the kind of amounts here. And then I thought I wanted to add in another bassy sub underneath it. And this one is like running pretty much without that volume automation. So it's a low sine wave -24, but there's no automation on the gain. So it's in a different group. And it's just running the whole time. It kind of gets a bit sort of distorted in a way because we're sort of smashing it together with a sub bass, you know. But yeah, next up then, you know, we start to get more magical when we add in our effects. So let's move over to the effects. And for these, I want to control some of the levels of them on a slightly different rhythm and pattern to my main LFO. So I've created another one, which is almost exactly the same. On my first one, I've actually drawn in a couple of points just to shape the ski slope so that my nan can, you know, get down it at a bit of an easier sort of pace. But yeah, on this secondary one here, just a normal ramp down, but the speed is slower, but it's at 4/16 instead of 2, so you know it's sort of half the speed. And then I'm going to use this to track some of the effects. So what will essentially happen is the effects will have, you know, they'll still be in time, but it will sort of be like every other note will be affected rather than, you know, each 8th note. So that's going to mean that the whole like 8th note kind of bass line has a bit more interest during its progression. And so yeah, turning this on, then adding in our effects, starting off with reverb, and this is just mixed in like a really small amount just to put the space in a room. And then I want to sort of distort this as well because it's going to be quite interesting with a bit of distortion on the reverb. And so this is where this main LFO that I've just added comes into play, and that's because I track the output of it to the mix of this distortion. So if we have a little listen when I turn that off or bring it down a little bit, you know, having it all the way up, you hear this dun 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 dun. It's every other note is being distorted, so not all of them. So again, that's a little bit more like interesting for the whole kind of groove. Yeah, so nice bit of distortion on that, and then I'm gonna sort of make it a bit more natural and take out some of the kind of aggression now because it's got a bit overly distorted at this point. But the mix on the convolver is also going to be automated, and this is just a bit of convolution with the small control room preset, which I really like. Just kind of pushes it slightly further into the background. Next up, we jump over to the next lane, and here I've got a non-linear filter doing a nice amount of sculpting out a lot of mid-range here. And that really like transforms the whole character of the sound a lot. You know, I'm taking out a lot, and then, you know, it's got its own character on. And again, I never know which mode to use, and with each sound it's different. This type of the metallic one just fitted the best, had the best harmonics. If you compare them, you know. It just had this natural feeling, so I just liked that. And yeah, it's made it all like a lot more tamed and natural, but it's got a nice character on it now. So I'm enjoying that a lot. And then I'm doing a bit more modulation. This is the phase distortion. It's just another type of distortion, turning the tone up, so we're going to hear that high end being distorted as well. And this one is on my main LFO, like the fast one. So there's no like method here really. It's just a couple of things I've decided to give this groove emphasis on the slower LFO. Some of them are just on the main one as well, you know? I'm not perfect, all right? I don't know what I'm doing. So yeah, that's quite cool. A little bit more push back into the sound. Then the stereo, like this is a really cool trick because often, you know, you make this bass with the unison and everything, the frequency stack, it becomes very wide very quickly. And to control it a bit, you know, I'm actually making it more mono by taking the width down to 25% and then modulating it back up on the main LFO, so it's going to be opening and closing like a Venus flytrap. So you can hear it's become a bit more mono, but you got that stereo flavor in it still. It's just being controlled more, and in that way, it fits into the mix down a little bit better because less side power in the whole sound just gives you more space, you know. So it's always a balance with the sides, you know, how much stereo you want to use. That's depending on your mix down, you know. But obviously the more mono, the more easier it's going to be to mix. But you know, you don't want it to be completely mono and boring either. So this is a bit of a balance, you know. Next up, we jump over to lane 3, and here it's just like a little bit more saturation. You know, especially with my non-linear filter, I really took out a lot of the harmonics. So now I'm sort of like feeling like I need to bring the volume back up again. So that's why I've done the distortion here. And again, here the high kind of shelf EQ, boosting it up on my LFO here. Give a bit more crunchy like bites to the sound, like the whole high-end shelf, but like on a rhythmical pattern, because that's exciting, isn't it? Rhythms and things, you know. Disperser is up next. Love this one. It doesn't work well on everything, but occasionally I try it, and I thought, let's get that laser sound into it. You know, it sort of boosts the resonances in its own algorithmic way, which sounds characteristic of the disperser each time you do it. So you can tell if you're a disperser user that someone's used disperser because it has that sound on it. But it sounds cool, and we love it. It really boosts the resonances and makes the body of the bass like quite longer though. So it's got more like length on it. You know that I think that length is a great thing, but it is all about how you use it. So in this case, I've had to go in and out a bit, a bit slower. So because that, you know, that length from the resonance is held out for like a long duration, I want to like sort of almost shape the transient of it in a way. So what I've done is I've turned the whole sound down, and then I've gained up the sound again on the LFO. So we kind of use the, you know, that main 8th pattern and sort of reintroduce some of the volume dynamic to everything, you know. So if that makes sense, I hope it does. Maybe it doesn't. But basically turning the whole sound down, putting it back onto my LFO to sort of realign our dynamic of the sound now, you know, because that resonance was so long, turning it all down and then pushing it on the LFO a little bit on the volume of everything again. Yeah, so, you know, that they kind of work together here. I'm sort of compensating for what the disperser's done, because I like the tone of it, don't like the length of that body, so bit of volume automation on there. And then I did transient shape it like a tiny amount as well, but just to finish it up. And that's basically it. That's the Hubba Bubba bass. What I've done as a last little thing, because I wanted to play with the phase of the kind of main rhythm here, you know. So how I like to do that is to grab open another LFO, set the output to the phase of our main one, and then once I've turned that on, then I've created a macro to control the effect. So now I can control the phase. So if I turn it up here, you won't, it's a bit subtle, but if you listen with the drums, you can hear now it's gone like out of beat. If you paid close attention, listen one more time and hear how out of beat it is. Like almost a bit too fast, because this one is changing the rate of the first one essentially. But having it off, really, really tight to the beat. But what I did in the end was put it somewhere in the middle, so it's like slightly off beat. So it's like slightly like late or early. I can never tell. That's why I'm a terrible DJ. Like it's either like it's not quite in time because it's too fast, or it's too slow. Either way, it's not in time. Anyway, that's the idea that I want for this. I want it to be slightly out of time. By the way, I'm actually okay at DJing, and I'm playing in Berlin in like 2 weeks, just under 2 weeks. So if you're in Germany, in Berlin, come and say hi and watch me spin some records with a USB, if that works. Yeah. Anyway, I like that little offbeat touch. And that pretty much finishes up today's video. So that's the Hubba Bubba bass. Hope you guys like it. I'm gonna probably drop like a kilohertz pack some point in the future. Like I want to make some better sounds first. I might do a little free one and a little like normal one as well. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the phase plant. Did I say kilohertz pack? I mean phase plant pack, phase plant preset pack. You know what I mean. I'm really enjoying this synth. It's a little bit more of a challenge than Vital. But if you want me to make a comparison video, Vital versus phase plant, I'd love to talk about that because, yeah, you guys might be interested in that conversation, whereas 90% of the other humans on the planet that I interact with in real life probably won't be. So anyway, that's very interesting. Hope you guys have had a nice weekend. Peace out. Much love. Don't do anything I wouldn't. Ciao for now.
Too great.